I read some sad news today that Chelsea Manning tried to kill herself. That's the third time now since she's been in jail. She is, just in case you're not aware, she's a whistleblower that leaked documents in the collateral murder video showing war crimes of the US to Julian Assange and of WikiLeaks. And the reason she's in jail is because she won't rat out Julian Assange. She won't lie to get herself out of jail and make things worse. If things could possibly get worse for Julian Assange, I don't think so. And Nils Melzer, who is the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture for the UN, said that this amounts to torture, what they're putting Chelsea Manning through right now. And I think this is sort of just another way. I mean, she was pardoned. She didn't need to be pardoned. She didn't do anything wrong. She's a hero. But she was pardoned by Obama just before he left office. And then, of course, the sadistic U.S. empire has decided to torture her until she probably ends up killing herself. That's what I think. I think they're just going to keep, and they're fining her $1,000 a day. They keep putting her back in prison because she won't testify against Julian Assange, and they're fining her $1,000 a day. And by the time she gets out, she'll owe about $400,000. There was a trial going to commence this week, which was to ask for her release from jail. And I wonder actually if just seeing that Bernie Sanders has pretty much lost the race in many ways due to a number of reasons, and you can look that up on Black Agenda Report. There's some very good analysis of why that has happened. But I wonder if she tried to take her life because she knows that if Trump gets in, she's probably never ever going to get out. That's what was very sad when Jeremy Corbyn in the UK wasn't elected prime minister, because that was probably the last hope really for Julian Assange to be released from that awful Belmarsh prison. So basically, the UK, Australia, and Western countries are all in cahoots with this torture of Julian Assange. My country is just, the politicians here have no moral spine, no offense to invertebrates, and they will not speak out for Julian Assange except for one independent politician who went to the UK, and he's waited 8 years before he really said anything. So I mean, and there was Scott Ludlam from the Greens, but he's no longer a Green, an Australian Green, and Rex Patrick said something, but I mean all the others, the Labor Party, the Coalition, said nothing. And most of the Greens have said nothing. If anything, they've actually helped along this situation, the imperialist Australian Green Party. Anyway, I digress. So it's very sad what's happening to Chelsea Manning. I feel like this is going to end up very badly if they don't release her, and I don't expect that they will, because they're incredible. This empire is incredibly sadistic. I mean, I'm not talking about just Trump. Whoever is the front puppet of this empire, it just goes on unabated. What Max Blumenthal calls the national security state, some call the deep state. It's the thread that goes through all these administrations, and they want these people dead. And that they're going to do it in ways that is not direct assassination, but it may as well be. It would probably be kinder than having them tortured to death, Assange and Chelsea Manning. And Chelsea Manning already had some challenges in her mental health, and she's had enough with having to transition and have the public scrutiny of that and the transphobia and all of that, and have to do that under the spotlight and have people continually, the idiots from the that help prop up empire, vilifying her, calling her a traitor and all of this, when really she's a whistleblower and a hero. And that's the bottom line. And unfortunately, I don't know. Social media can be a very cruel thing. So anyway, that's that. And so she's in hospital now. She tried to hang herself with a sheet. I don't know how high the ceilings are in the jail cell, but this is the third time now. I mean, anybody with any sense of any sense of humanity would just release her. I mean, she's done her time, and she shouldn't have had to do that time. And they're still torturing her. You know, see, this is the thing. It's making an example of anybody who's a whistleblower, who wants to expose the corruption of politicians and of war crimes of the US. This is to make an example of them so that no one ever does that again. And the same with Julian Assange, a journalist and publisher that released Collateral Murder, given to them by Chelsea Manning, and a whole host of other documents that reveal war crimes, etc. You know, this is to make an example that people, journalists, whistleblowers, never do that again. And if they extradite Julian Assange to the US, which is quite likely at this point, this will make sure that anybody else who ever does that again will be able to be extradited from anywhere in the world, including my country here in Australia. I want to quickly talk about the coronavirus. You might be aware, Donald Trump, he's been acting very slowly on this because, well, he doesn't really give a toss about the public, and I think his advisors have said, look, you may actually end up losing the election if too many people die, so maybe you should do something now. So Donald Trump has decided to act now after a delayed response, but still he's not really great with, he's underfunded the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, which provides the test kits. I think they're trying to cut the red tape for that, but it's like, you know, I can imagine, I've done a video already about this, somebody who most likely has coronavirus, and they just sent him back home because they didn't test him. They tested him for everything else and didn't test him for the coronavirus. There's 2 governors that are waiting for, I think it's funding or something. Anyway, Donald Trump made this public televised thing today on US TV, saying that what he was going to do, which is quite good, although it's kind of late, very late, and it's probably already all around the place at this point. But one of the things he was going to do was stop flights coming in from Europe, and I'm thinking, well, it's kind of a little bit late trying to put a lid on this. And what about Japan? What about South Korea? You know, like there are. I mean, Italy, yes, it's got lots of cases and stuff. But what about, you know, these other countries? I mean, so it's sort of like, I don't know if that's going to be all that helpful. The thing is, like, possibly the US is going to end up with a lot of cases. Will Australia and the UK, also he didn't block the UK from flights coming in from the UK, and that's weird. But, you know, will Australia say the same to the US, like, I'm sorry, you've got a lot of cases there, you can't fly in there? Not likely. I try not to look at mainstream media in this coronavirus because I think they're just doing it for clicks, really, getting everybody panicked about it. Of course, it is a pandemic, and it is something to be concerned about, and one should take all the precautions one can. And that includes, of course, I wanted to mention, before I get on to some health tips, and I hope you don't mind, but I think I've got some good advice in as far as health goes for that. But the Google has taken down an app from the Iranian government put an app available to Iranians so they could help identify if they had coronavirus, and Google has taken that down because of the sanctions on Iran. The US is also trying to stop medicines from going into Iran. So basically they're trying to make things way worse than they already are in Iran. And why is that? Because Iran is in the crosshair of the US empire. So, you know, they want to disable that country any way they can, and that's crippling economic sanctions, preventing medicines from coming into Iran, taking down Google apps because of Iranian sanctions on Iran. And economic sanctions are an act of war. So that's what they're doing to Iran, trying to cripple Iran and make things worse and kill as many people as possible. That's what they're trying to do. That's just sort of that's a crime in itself. Sanctions, economic sanctions, and all of that are an act of war. What I was saying about the health things, being vegan, I invite you to have a look at a site called nutritionfacts.org, nutritionfacts.org, and by Dr. Michael Greger, and it's all science-backed. He scans all the latest nutrition articles and science articles and medical journals, so we don't have to. And as he says, and he's got a big team with him. And they've got all these different science-backed articles that are in easily to digest short videos. And I've been following, because I'm vegan, and there's a lot of information on the benefits of a plant-based diet, as well as the horror story that is animal products. You can find out great ways to boost your immune system. So I'm going to put aside the ethical reason to be vegan, which is the most important reason, that is that animals are not our resources, they're not our property. And I'm just going to talk about the ancillary benefit for a moment of being vegan, adopting a plant-based diet, which is a diet free of milk, dairy, eggs, etc. And meat, when I say meat, that includes fish and all of that. So, and also being vegan means not wearing animals on your body and not using them in general. So the thing that, there's a number of things one can do. Firstly, if you adopt a plant-based diet, you alkalize your body, which makes it more difficult for diseases to take hold. Animal products actually acidify one's body. They do all sorts of things, but they always, like every time you ingest animal products, you create inflammation in your body literally, and it actually sort of is a welcome sign for disease and viruses, etc. So you're constantly creating inflammation in your body, and so a plant-based diet alkalizes your body, and it's not creating inflammation. In fact, it's boosting your antioxidants, and it's making your body it protects your body from the viruses and different things like that. It won't necessarily stop them, but it certainly makes it a lot harder because your immune system is stronger. And something like as simple as, if you've ever heard of nutritional yeast, these are additional things. Nutritional yeast is just this simple cheese-like tasting product. It is not cheese, but it tastes a bit like cheese. And, the science is that, even just a 16th of a teaspoon can increase it's got full of beta-glucans, and that can increase, boost your immune system tremendously. Just a 16th of a teaspoon. So nutritional yeast is great, and eating plants basically is just a fantastic thing for your immune system. And chlorella, which is it's a green algae, not spirulina, which is a blue-green thing. I don't recommend that. But chlorella is from a good source, and you can take it in tablet form. It's just a very simple algae, and it's really beneficial and it's a really beneficial antiviral. And it does all sorts of other things. But these sort of things, they're all plant-based, but let thy food be thy medicine. That's actually something really that we could all benefit from. So do think about becoming vegan for ethical reasons, for the fact that we've got to stop torturing and killing 1 to 3 trillion land and aquatic animals every day for trivial reasons of mostly palate pleasure, but also that we're killing ourselves. And these diseases, these zoonotic diseases, are actually due to our animal use. This one is due to eating wildlife, in quotes, like bats. This COVID-19 and coronaviruses, they're zoonotic. So, MERS, MERS, and SARS, SARS, H1N1, all of that, they're all come from animal farming. They're all from using animals. So see where, and the superbugs actually are created in these industrialized settings, and even free range is industrialized now. So there's major superbugs that are antibiotic resistant. So there's so many reasons, and then don't even get me started on the benefits of toward the environment, with animal agriculture being one of the major drivers of the climate crisis and the 6th mass extinction. So there's so many reasons to be vegan. So I implore you to please think about it first for the animals, for your health, and for the climate crisis. It's just a win-win, and you'll feel so much better. And just for those who are wondering how my arm is getting on, well, I have a splint. It's a soft splint. I had an operation about a month ago. It's coming along well, and I did a bone density test because doctors who are underinformed about the benefits of a plant-based diet always seem to think that vegans are going to be unhealthy, when in fact if you have a balanced plant-based diet, it's the opposite. My bone density is above average for my age. So I didn't break my arm because my bones are weak. I broke my arm because I rammed it into the ground really hard when I fell over some boulders. We live in the rural area, and I wasn't paying attention, and I just fell backwards over some boulders when I was doing something very mundane. So anyway, but that's just to let there was somebody who made a comment in the comment section saying, implying that it was my diet. No, it's not. In fact, I'm doing very well. Thanks very much. So anyway, that's coming along. And that's all I was going to say really about a plant-based diet. I invite you to check out nutritionfacts.org and find out how you can fortify your immune system with a plant-based diet and therefore make it more difficult for things like viruses to attack you, particularly if you're older. Back to Chelsea Manning, I think that Chelsea Manning probably thought that if Bernie Sanders isn't going to make it to the end and become the nominee, which is looking very likely now because of all the shenanigans of the party, and also the Black Agenda Report, who's done some great articles on this, has basically said that the black misleadership class has frightened a lot of black people, black communities, about supporting Bernie Sanders because making them afraid that if they support Bernie Sanders, that the what they call, what the Black Agenda Report calls the white man's party, the Republican Party might, it gives the Republican Party more of a chance to get back in. But in fact, the black misleadership class, as the Black Agenda Report calls them, has actually in many ways done a huge disservice to and disempowered the black community. This is just one of the reasons why Bernie Sanders is not getting through. But they've done a huge disservice now to the black community, and as a result of that, has disadvantaged all of us, not just in the US, but the rest of the world, because another 4 years of Trump, not that the Democratic Party is much better than the GOP, but Trump is a wannabe fascist, and Joe Biden is not going to win against Trump. He's cognitively in decline, and he is just like Trump, really, in his policies. He wants to cut Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and he's a big warmonger. He said if Bernie Sanders was president and he put through Medicare for all, he would veto it. That's what he said. That's the sad state. There's a whole bunch of reasons. Of course, there's voter suppression that's happened. There's also Bernie Sanders has not stood up and gone for the jugular with Joe Biden. He keeps calling him his friend, and he really did not attack him. There's so many reasons why, but as Ajama Barak has said, basically simply that, if you're going to lay down and roll over just because Bernie Sanders didn't make it through, then you're not really serious about a revolution. I mean, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And Bernie Sanders, I don't think, it seems he wasn't serious. He's more worried about offending his good friend, in quotes, Joe Biden, than he was about actually ending this existential crisis that's happening, and that the approaching fascism that's coming. That's part of it. And of course, there's other reasons too, but I mean, I could see that he just wasn't, there were so many opportunities. He could have that guy on the ropes, no trouble, Joe Biden. He's just, there's so many things wrong with him. I mean, I could list them right now, and Bernie Sanders could have just gone for it and had him on the ropes in no time, but he's too worried about his good friend, in quotes. Well, that's not serious. That's not seriously wanting to have a revolution and to speak on behalf of the voters who put him in that position, who gave him that $27, and now he's got hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever he has. People rely on him to attack. That this is what it's about. It's not about Joe Biden and good friends and all that rubbish. This is life and death stuff. So anyway, that's really sad. And I'm imagining that Chelsea Manning could see that Bernie Sanders isn't going to get through. Not that I thought they would ever let him get through, even if he became the nominee, but she's probably seen that and just thought, I'm done for. They're never going to let me out of prison. And this will be the third time now that she's tried to kill herself. And I wouldn't be surprised if they make it easy for her. I know some people have had, said things like, did she try to kill herself or did they try to kill her? I have no idea. But I would say, going on her past history, she probably did try to kill herself. And they'll probably continue to keep her. They'll probably keep putting her back in there and putting her back in there and putting her back in there until she does kill herself. And that's what they want. They don't want her alive. They want to send a message to everybody. This is what happens if you call out and expose empire, expose the corruption of empire and the war crimes. We're going to put you in jail until you're so beside yourself with mental anguish that you kill yourself, or that you're so debilitated that you die, like Julian Assange. That's the sort of thing that they're trying to put out with this. So anyway, if you can write to Chelsea Manning, you can find, there's a website called releasechelsea.com, and they probably have an address that you can write to Chelsea Manning when she comes out of the hospital, the jail hospital or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what hospital she's in. But do that, because she is a hero and she may never get out. She may take herself out, and at least let her know what a hero she is. And for all those transphobes, like, I'm very sorry to see George Galloway putting out George Galloway has been good about Chelsea Manning, and I wish he could put one and one together and think Chelsea Manning is a trans woman, and then think about that. But instead, he's lately, with his new Workers' Party, has been putting out transphobic content, and I'm very disappointed about that. And I said something to him on his Twitter feed, and he blocked me. So, he's really committed to this ignorance. So consider, George Galloway, consider leaving messages. You might get blocked, but leaving polite messages about that he needs to actually get educated on this issue about trans people, and he needs to interview somebody who is a well-versed trans person about this issue. And that's the problem with people who are they're committed to the ignorance. They don't actually want to find out about it, and they don't want to ever sort of accept it. So they as I say, they're committed to that ignorance, and they never ever interview anybody. They only interview people who are transphobes and people who agree with them, and that's ridiculous. And I find there's a lot of people who call themselves on the left who do that. I find that kind of a little bit off, to say the least. It really bothers me, and if somebody is really committed to that, there's somebody I used to follow on YouTube who I found was regularly putting out transphobic content, and when I addressed it with them, I said, saying this is overtly transphobic. And I said, what is your position on trans people? And they said to me, I don't have a position on trans people. Well, that actually indicates you're transphobic as it is. To say that to somebody. That's like saying I don't have a position on gay people or black people or whatever, although, having a position, but you know what I'm saying? Maybe it was, what's your opinion? I don't have an opinion, really. So, the left, people on the left that are suffering from transphobia need to just get educated, seriously and really. Trans people have been around for thousands of years. It's not something new. It's not some newfangled thing. If you did any history, if you looked at history, you would realize that. Like I say, people are dedicated to that ignorance. They're fearful of this. Anything that's outside of heteronormativity is threatening. It's sad. I mean, these sort of things. Gay people have been around forever. These are not new things. Non-binary people have been around forever. It's just that now there are names for that in Western culture. And it seems like, it's sad. But anyway, so Chelsea Manning is trans, get over it. And there's wonderful trans people in the world, and they have a struggle enough with this, with themselves, without having anybody who calls themselves on the left giving them a hard time and trying to tear it down and trying to adding to the ignorance and the violence. Trans people are more likely to kill themselves than the rest of the public because of this transphobia. There are, every year in the United States, there's at least probably 20 to 30 black trans women who are murdered. So this transphobia causes violence, just like every other discrimination causes violence. Speciesism causes violence, that's why we need to be vegan. Homophobia causes violence, and lots of children end up killing themselves. Transphobia causes violence, all these discriminations cause violence. Racism causes violence and adds to these imperialist wars. So we need to stop with it and start to recognize that these are all faces of the same ignorance. They're all otherizing. They otherize a group based on an irrelevant criterion. And we need to, we need to recognize our interconnectedness, at least before we go extinct. Wouldn't that be nice? Anyway, so thanks for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Riga. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the notifications bell, otherwise you won't receive notifications when I drop a video. Please leave comments if you wish. Thanks for watching. Till next time. Bye for now.